On this episode of Still Loading, my side ain't chosen. My side was given. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the Still Loading podcast. I'm your host, Josh Koval, and today on the show, we are beginning, hopefully, a small little series. By series, I mean hopefully it'll go back to back, depending on how our recording schedules all line up. But today and this week's and next week's episode, it's going to be a celebration of all things Red Dead Redemption, and this week is going to be exclusively just the original game, Red Dead Redemption 1, or just Red Dead Redemption. And here with me to talk about Red Dead Redemption is my good friend, Justine. Justine, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. A little tired. We were talking off mic about some stressful stuff going on, but other than that, everything's going well. So I have you on today because you are one of the first people I ever spoke to who really and I know there's a lot of people who love these games and
Mhm.
Red Dead 1 and 2, but in my circle of friends, you were one of the first people that I knew that really when that game was brought up, you loved it. Like your eyes lit up. You were excited about Red Dead
Yes,
Redemption.
absolutely, absolutely. It's my favorite game of all time.
Well, I think the second one is your favorite.
Well, yeah,
You like this one a lot too, but the second one is like your all time.
yes, yeah, definitely. The second one for sure.
Oh,
Favorite game
that's
of all time.
we are going to go nuts on that one. I'm excited.
Yes, absolutely.
So, I guess to start off though, what first drew you to Red Dead Redemption? Or do you like westerns type of thing? And then also, what's some of your earliest memories of the game?
Actually, I started off hating westerns.
Really?
It was not my thing at all. And about like back in 2019, when the 2019 E3 convention happened, they played a trailer for Red Dead 2, and there was this huge hype about this game. And I'm like, I've never heard of this series before. And I actually played the games backwards. So
Okay.
I
I think you
went,
might have been talking about E3 either 2018 or 17 then, because Red Dead 2 came out in 2018.
did it? I thought it came out in 2019.
Nope. October
Really?
24th, 2018 is Red Dead 2.
Oh my god, you were right. You were absolutely right about that. Yes, it was 2018 then.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah, I went and I made an impulse buy. I tried to hold out so I could buy the first Red Dead Redemption and play that first, but
That's a big thing. Because I know we've talked off, Mike. Like you have to
Mhm.
play things in order.
Yes, that is a huge thing for me. I am like obsessive over the way I play video games. So that was a big thing for me. It was between Red Dead 2 or Fallout 76, which I'm a fan of the Fallout series. Went for Fallout 76. Worst financial decision I've ever
I feel like
made
a
in my
lot of people fell into that too.
Yep. So I felt like I needed my video game dopamine fix. And so I went for Red Dead 2 on a whim, played it, fell in love with it. And I was like, okay, I need to play the first one. So I really did not expect to like it as much as I do. But yeah,
That's
that's how I
actually
got into
pretty
it.
interesting. I was not expecting I so for me, I'm not a big Rockstar fan. I don't like GTA all that much. Though it's weird, like I really like the worlds they build and I like the
Mhm.
stories they tell, but I can't stand the gameplay. Though I haven't played GTA 5 and I've heard GTA 5 is fantastic, so I do need to
It's
try
good.
that at some point. But I held off on playing it because I just I don't know, I didn't like GTA games, so I'm like, if I don't like Rockstar's other games, why would I try this one? And I ended up caving in and really giving it a shot. I want to say Oh my gosh, I forget one. I wrote there's blog posts up on my website about the original Red Dead. And then when 2020 came and the pandemic started, I actually bought Red Dead 2 from like Best Buy and ordered it, and then I played it that the spring of 2020, right at the beginning of the pandemic. So Red Dead 2 specifically has a lot of like early, this is weird to say, but early pandemic nostalgia.
That
Where
is that's a little weird. It's a little
I feel
weird.
like we're getting Stockholm syndromed into this pandemic thing. It's like, oh man, remember the
Absolutely.
beginning of 2020? Oh, that was great. No, it wasn't. That's a lie. Nostalgia's tricking you. But so that was how I first kind of got into the series. I'm actually going to look up while I'm talking like when that blog post was, because I was writing those blog posts while I was playing the original Red Dead and just kind of giving my thoughts on it. So I think like the first, it was like a two-parter, one part from when I first started with it and another part from when I finally beat it. So I'm curious when I did this. The blog hiatus that I started was in June of 2019. So that definitely puts that in a specific time and place. So I'll keep looking, but yeah. So I first got into it. Okay, I found it May of 2019. So I played the game. I beat the games a year apart, just about. I beat them actually a year apart from each other. I never played Red Dead 1 until 2019. Like really, really tried. I started the game up a couple times,
Mhm.
maybe played like one mission, and then it was like, this is boring, and just gave up real fast. So, but I like westerns. I actually really like. I'm a John Wayne fan. I really
Yeah.
like the spaghetti westerns, like the Fistful of Dollars trilogy. Um, really like all that stuff. And so when I played this, it was Red Dead 1, I think I respect more for what it did than my feelings towards it. Like, I like, just to be clear, I do like this game, but it
Mhm.
was definitely rough around the edges for me because I played it 9 years after it came out. And I guess we
I
should say
I agree with
the
that, yeah.
release date for this was May 18th, 2010.
Mhm.
That was when the original. So we're this is almost 12 years old. I mean, this will be out before its 12th anniversary, but this is almost 12 years old. That is wild.
Yeah, that is wild. Oh my god. I think for the time it came out, it was, a great game. The graphics were great for its time,
I still think
but
they're not bad.
yeah, they're not bad. It's just especially for me since I played Red Dead 2 first, I went and I played those beautiful graphics, and then I went to the first Red Dead, and it left something to be desired a little bit, and I
Yeah, I could see
realized
that.
that that's not the game's fault, it's my own fault for playing
Trying
the
to
more up.
compare it to a more modern to its more
Exactly,
modern successor.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, that's my own fault, but it is that's the struggle you have of playing games, 10 to 12 years after they come out.
I mean, that's the whole thing. You always look, you have to, when you play games that old, you have to look at them in the context of what it was like when it came out. And Red
Mhm,
Dead 1, I mean, it universally praised. It sold super well.
mhm.
It has almost all the ratings I'm seeing are like 90s or higher. I think the only publication, at least on Wikipedia, that's showing under a 9 out of 10 is Eurogamer, which gave it an 8 out of 10, uh,
Oh,
which
that's
is
still
just
not
blasphemy. Just
bad.
blasphemy. Even though I'm not a big fan of this game, it's just blasphemy. But the game is, it's interesting because it really, I think Rockstar really translated what made GTA so much fun
Mhm.
into the westerns really well. But like they modified it enough where they didn't apply GTA mission structure to a western game. They revamped the mission structure because it's a western. It's like you're not in this super cramped, dense, almost claustrophobic city atmosphere. You're
Yes,
in this
right.
wide open space, so it lets the gameplay stand out. Like it allows you to do a lot
Mhm,
more gunplay with this because it's wide open plains and stuff like that.
mhm. Yeah.
So to kind of kick this off though, to kind of dive straight into this, Red Dead was inspired by a game that Rockstar published called Red Dead Revolver. That I feel like most
Mhm,
people know.
mhm.
Um, I've never played Red Dead Revolver though. Have you?
I haven't played it, but I've seen a playthrough of it. I was curious. I noticed that the main character seems to have scars on his face, like similar to John Marston.
Oh, I did not
So
know
it's
that part.
it's a little bit of a fan theory that it's supposed to be like the original John Marston without, the name. It's like that original character that it was that they created for this game franchise.
I could see that. I could definitely see that. So, Red Dead Revolver was developed by, or was in development by a company called Angel Studios, and it was actually originally going to be published by Capcom, not
Oh,
not
okay.
Rockstar. It was going to be published by Capcom, and it was meant to be the spiritual successor to an old arcade game called Gunsmoke, which was like a top-down shooter. And in the Capcom version, before they pretty much the development stopped on the Capcom version between because there was creative differences between Angel Studios and Capcom. Development stopped, and then Rockstar inevitably or eventually bought out Angel Studios. And when they saw the concepts for this, they really liked it, but they tweaked it to be more their style, and that's how we got Red Dead Revolver. But because the original Red Dead Revolver, when it was still under Capcom, was much more fantastical. Like there was going to be a dude who could fly and stuff like that. Like it was literally a dude with wings, like feathers and
What?
everything. It's wild.
That is
So they wanted to make it realistic, and so they kind of they made it more realistic, and that's where the whole Western idea. That's how it kind of seeped into Rockstar's head. Like we should make this like GTA Western, pretty much. And they did a lot of studying on like Western films and all that stuff. But they also went to the Library of Congress. I was going to say the Congress of Library. That just makes sense. The Library of Congress, and they were trying to read up on what life was like in the early 1900s because it was in the dying days of the West, as we all know.
Mhm,
And one thing that the writer Dan Houser was saying was that the language used to describe different groups of people, uh, they included it, but they couldn't be as accurate as they wanted to because it would be such a stark comparison to what we're used to now. Like no, like the amount of probably racial slurs and
mhm.
sexist remarks would have been off the charts if they kept it
Oh,
historically
yeah.
accurate.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they got away with enough with in terms of racism with the Native Americans. Like, that whole situation throughout the game, the first Red Dead Redemption and the second.
I mean, but the whole thing is like they're not trying to condone the awful stuff that
Mhm. Yeah,
occurred to any of the minorities of the time.
right.
Um, so I just found that kind of funny that they had to tone it down, and I'm like, they toned it down. Like it's not like it was overt or anything like that, but they also didn't really shy away from it. It
No,
felt
but
like just
I
like,
feel
okay,
like
well, this is just bad stuff. It's of the time. Like that's
it
how people
is.
talk back then. But apparently, it should have been, if you're just going by historical accuracy, a lot worse.
I mean, that's I'm not too surprised by that just from, all the history classes I've taken in college. But I do think that the bad stuff they did show in both games, they kind of put a spin on it so that they showed all this awful thing, like all these awful things happening, but at the same time, they put out this message of, how bad it is. Like
Well, they made
the
your character
morality.
not that. Like your character is very like it's very, especially in Red Dead 2, which I don't want to focus on, so we won't go into now. We'll save it for when we
Mm,
talk Red Dead 2, but they definitely make it so like all like your character is just like he doesn't want any part of that. Marsden doesn't
mhm.
want any part of that.
No. No, but you always have someone in both games, like, there and explaining their side from the minority viewpoint. Even though
Mhm.
you get people saying these terrible things, you always have someone explaining and, eh, without like, there's not really much point of contention with it. It's just like, with the Native Americans, they're the character from Red Dead 1, he just explained that a lot of people were murdered and they're in pain, they're suffering. You can't really say no you're not. It's
Yeah,
just
no. They just allow them to speak the truth of what happened at
yes.
the time.
Yeah.
But so the game revolve the whole story. I guess we've been talking about John Marsden. We should really talk about like the story of this game and kind
Mhm.
of incorporate the gameplay into that too. You play as a character named John Marsden, who is played by an actor named Rob Whiteoff. Um, Rob doesn't really do a lot of other acting. He pretty much is known for John Marsden, and that's it. I'm pretty sure he's like a contractor. Like if you follow him on Instagram, it's just him doing like contracting work. That's just what he likes to do. I found that super interesting.
Yeah, he posts just like contracting work or Red Dead Redemption stuff. Like that's what he posts.
He was in a movie called 16 Blocks, which starred Bruce Willis, Mos Def, and David Morse. He was a court officer in that.
I could
Um,
see him as an officer.
he was in a movie called The Outside, and he played a character named Turk. I don't know what it's about though because I can't. There's
Mhm.
no link for that. He was in. I did not know this, and I feel like I should have looked this up. There is a machinima short film made from video game footage called "The Man Red Dead Redemption: The Man from Blackwater."
Really?
Yeah, I probably should have watched that now that I think about it. It
Wow.
looks like you can find it pretty easily on YouTube. I see like a 30-minute link to, but but the page is like the YouTube channels for Dagger 323. So I don't know how
Mhm.
accurate that actually is.
Yeah.
Um, it says it's the original short film. That's
Huh.
kind of wild. So I wonder if this is actually it. But in any case, so yeah, he did obviously the voice for that. But since they just took clips from gameplay, I'm not really surprised. So he didn't really have to do much more for that. But then the last movie that I see him in, he was in a movie called Double Tap as Detective Fitzgerald. This is all on Wikipedia though, so obviously if I went to his IMDb, it probably would show more.
Mhm.
But yeah, he just does construction work, and that's what he likes to do. He's not the biggest fan of acting, I guess, and more power to him. He does what he likes to do.
Yeah.
So you play as John Marsden, and he is kidnapped by the Bureau of Investigation by agents Edgar Ross and Archer Fordham, which I don't remember. I didn't remember those names until I literally had to look them up. And basically, he is forced to hunt down his former gang members, which you find out more about the whole gang and all their stuff in Red Dead 2 because it's a prequel. But in Red Dead 1, it takes place in 1911, and you are kidnapped, and your family, your wife and kid are also kidnapped. And basically, you have to hunt these down, otherwise, they will take your wife and kid away. So the whole premise of the game is John Marsden having to hunt down former members of his gang, and you meet colorful characters along the way, some strange ones,
To say
eh,
the least.
to say the very least. And then eventually you find your old gang leader Dutch Vanderland, played by Benjamin Byron Davis. Dutch does like he's so much better in Red Dead 2.
Mhm.
He's barely in Red Dead 1 because
Mhm.
it's Marsden's story, but it's interesting to me how much they were able to flesh out his character in the
Yeah.
second one when I barely remember him in the first one.
Right. Yeah, and also he's not really the main antagonist. Even like you don't really find out who the main antagonist truly is until the end of the game, but for some parts they kind of try and make it feel like it's Dutch,
I
but
would
it's
argue I would argue, and we're going to get into spoilers, so just spoiler alerts for everyone. I know it's like a almost 12-year-old game, but still, like I feel like this is new enough that maybe some people haven't played it or are interested in playing it. But there's going to be spoilers in this, so I almost feel like the antagonist in this game is Marsden's past. Like that's what it is, because none of the people that he hunts down are really all that memorable in this game. Like you don't really know much about them. You get to know
Mhm.
John a lot more, and with
Yeah.
the surprise ending, it really is his past that is the like the antagonist, like it sets up the whole premise of this game.
That's true. I think that you could make a definite solid argument. I think it's Detective Ross.
The
Um,
the only reason I don't put him as that, even though I know why you're saying that is, I
mm,
guess we should just talk about we should just say why he is. Basically, you get all the, and we'll go into more detail as the events, but basically you do take out all of your former gang members, and then you think you can return and live with your family, and surprise, no, they just end up killing you.
yep.
But the reason I don't know if I would say Ross is because he's barely in the game. He shows up a handful of times. So it's like, could you really say he's an antagonist when he's not really doing anything? Like he's a villain for damn sure, but I would almost say the antagonist of the game is John's past, because you wouldn't have Agent Ross, or yeah, Agent Ross on him if it wasn't for his past.
I mean, it's true. Like I said, it's definitely a valid argument, and I would not be surprised if that ended up being confirmed true. But at the same time, I think Detective Ross could be construed as an antagonist because even though he is not personally in the game for very much, he is always there in spirit. You know what I mean? Like he is always talking about
He's a
him.
specter that hangs over you.
Yeah, he is. He he is like John is always referring to him. These guys, these government officials, and Ross is in charge of this entire mission. These government officials are hounding him to hunt down these former gang members, and they have his family hostage.
Hmm.
And so, even though he is not present, you see him in the first cutscene, like little, like maybe midway or a little more when they capture Javier, and then a lot in the end. But I think just because they talk about him, he is hanging over John's head the entire time. I
All right,
think.
I see what you're saying. I still see, I didn't get that vibe from it throughout the game, but it's also been a little bit since I've played it. I mean, it's been a couple years. I did play a little bit of it to refresh myself, just mainly on the
Mhm.
controls and like how the game feels playing. But
Mhm.
some interesting things with this. So basically the format of the story is that there's only three gang members left that you have to hunt down. You have to hunt down Bill Williamson, you have to hunt down Javier Escuela, and you have to hunt down your former leader, Dutch Vanderland. And in basically when you're hunting down, you hunt them down one at a time. The first one is Bill Williamson. And it's basically the way the game kind of structures that is that each of the areas, there's like three main areas to the game, right? There is like like a American West, like deserts and like tumbleweeds and all that good stuff, like like
That's
what you would see in like a border, like a border town, like on the border of civilization and the West, like it's
right.
that type of thing.
It's
Then you
called
have,
New Austin.
it's called New Austin, is that what it's
New
called?
Austin. I think it's supposed to represent like southern Texas.
Yes, I could definitely see that. I'm actually, you know what? You might hear it in the background. I have the game case, excuse me, right in front of me. I could literally open it up and see the beautiful poster that comes with it. And
Oh, you've got the fancy map.
oh, it's huge. You can hear me opening it on mic. And it's got a picture of Bonnie McFarlane, who's one of my favorite characters as well from the game. She's fun. Uh, so here we go. Yeah, so that's interesting the way it looks here. So they don't even name the sections on this for me. You have They have it kind of like almost, it's hard to explain. Oh yeah, here we go. Now I'm like seeing it: Western United States, Northern Mexico, and then obviously like I mentioned before, the edge of innovation is a kind of a good way to describe it.
Mm.
Cars and electricity and all that good stuff. And the way the Texas, the New Austin area is Bill Williamson. Mexico, northern Mexico is Javier Escuela, and then Blackwater area is kind of like where Dutch is at, if I remember correctly. He's kind of up in
Yes.
like the northeast side of the map where you finally get
Yeah.
him.
Like you see him in Blackwater, but he hides out in the area called Tall Trees, which is north of Blackwater, I believe, or is it? west?
You know what? I can tell you in 2 seconds because I have the
Yes,
map
you
in
can.
front of me.
Yes, you do.
I closed it back up, but I can reopen it because it's huge. It's a big map. Though when I was playing Red Dead again last night, I was surprised how small it was compared to Red Dead 2.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah, Tall Trees, it's not above Blackwater, but it's right up there pretty much. It's like
Mm,
a little bit farther west. And your homestead is in between that actually. Your
yes.
homestead at the end of the game.
Beecher's Hope.
Beecher's Hope, yep. And so you have to hunt down each of your gang members, and along the way, you meet a cavalcade of colorful characters, and just something I found super interesting. So, like in the first area, when you're hunting Bill Williamson, you meet a character, U.S. Marshal Lee Johnson, a con
Mhm.
artist named Nigel West Dickens, and a treasure hunter named Seth Briers. Oh yeah, and an arms smuggler named Irish.
Yep.
And I didn't know this when I played this or until I did research for this. And I didn't know this until I did research. The voice actor who did Nigel West Dickens is Don Creech.
Mhm.
He plays the teacher Mr. Sweeney in Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide.
I saw that.
That blew my mind. I'm like, are you fucking telling me Mr. Sweeney is Nigel West Dickens? I was even too old for that show when it came out, but I still watched it because I'm a kid at heart and I have no shame. But I watched it a little bit, but I found that fascinating that he was the voice of Nigel West Dickens. I'm like, that legit blew my mind. I just could not wrap my head around the fact that Creech was Nigel West Dickens, and he's only ever done a total of 2 video games. He did Red Dead Redemption, technically the standalone expansion with Undead Nightmare, which I didn't play. Did you play Undead Nightmare?
I did not. I watched a playthrough of it though.
Is it? We'll talk about it. I don't. We'll at least reference it. I don't have a lot to say on it
Mhm.
because I didn't really play it. I've heard it's good though.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
he played a character in L.A. Noir, Rufus Dixon.
I'm trying to remember who Rufus was because I played LA Noir years ago.
I never. He was in the Adventures of Pete and Pete. I loved that show as a kid. That was an
That
old
sounds so
Nickelodeon
familiar.
show with Danny Tamborelli and I can't think of the other actor's name. Uh, Michael Morona. That was it. Yeah, that's wild. He was in The Adventures of Pete and Pete. He was also in uh, Brooklyn Nine-Nine in one episode, Criminal Minds in another episode, and How I Met Your Mother in another episode. So there we go. In How I Met Your Mother, he is credited as old guy. Which just sounds very dignified.
It's a very important old guy.
Just old guy. But yeah, so you basically have to help these people, and they in turn will give you what you need to hunt down Bill Williamson. But when you first try to confront Bill Williamson, his guy shoots you and leaves you for dead. And that's when you meet another character, Bonnie McFarlane. Is it McFarlane or McFarland? I'm blanking on it now.
McFarland, like
Lind with a D.
LAND.
So so in this first section of the game, what are some of your favorite missions and stuff that stuck out to you, like from the time you start until the time you get capture Bill Williamson?
Um, I think well, the first mission definitely stands out to me, because there's so it's packed with drama and adventure, like, right off the bat.
Drama. Sorry.
You get off the train at Armadillo, the town, that's, like, in the center of New Austin, and then some guy you meet in the saloon, he guides you up to Fort Mercer, which is where Bill
Drama.
Williams
Keep going.
lived.
Sorry, it's still
Uh,
in my head.
and you John talks with Bill. There's, bickering back and forth, and then Bill just straight up shoots John, and he's lying there for dead. And that is the first mission,
Yep,
like
the
that,
very first mission.
right off the bat. It does not. I think it goes a little slowly after that. Like you're at the like Bonnie McFarland and one of her ranch hands come and discover John laying there injured and dying. They pick him up, they take him to their ranch, and they heal him up. They get a doctor, and after that, he agrees to help pay off medical bills to, like, by working on the ranch. And
Yep.
the next few missions after that, it's like learning how to work on the ranch, which can be a little slow. Um, but you know from that first mission that there is more insanity to come, that it's not going to be this boring ranch game.
Well, and those range missions, as slow as they are pretty necessary because it kind of gives you an
Mhm.
idea of what you can do in the game. The,
It's
the
true.
the mission leading up to when you first get shot is just basically to teach you movement, like
Mhm.
how to walk off, how to move around when you're not on a horse, how to move around when you are on a horse, how to get shot on a horse. No, that's all done in the cutscene, so you have to learn that later on. But 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 so you end up, like you said, you wake up at Bonnie McFarlane's ranch, and by helping her out, it gives you, you first fire a gun by helping her chase off coyotes and stuff like that,
Mhm.
and shooting rabbits and stuff like that, and it also teaches you how to ride, like shoot, and kind of gives you practice to shoot and ride on horseback.
Mhm.
Um,
Using
so a
your
lot of the
lasso and stuff like that.
sorry, what?
Like, you use your lasso,
Hmm.
teaches you how to use your lasso, and you, at one point, you race Bonnie, like, around the ranch area, so you learn how to, like, maneuver your horse and run quickly without, like, allowing your horse to run completely out of stamina.
Yeah, exactly, and it also then is character building because you get to know. I
Mhm.
was about to say Arthur. You get to know John a little bit more, and you also get to know who Bonnie is. Bonnie is a really fun character because she. If it wasn't for John's wife Abigail, you could totally see them getting together.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, there's definitely a little bit of like a romantic thing, but John is once again kind of playing into that whole, like, there's awful racist, sexist things that happen, but John's not a bad guy. He's
No,
staying faithful to his wife. He can
he's a
look a whole.
gentleman.
He's a gentleman. He went into a sex worker house, but and looks a sex worker right in the eyes, and he's like, "No, thank you, ma'am." He does that
Mhm.
at least once upon it. I'm just making this part
At
up, but like,
least.
the beginning of the game does have John walking into a bar, and it's basically a
Mhm.
bar and a brothel, and
Yes.
there's a couple prostitutes there, and in fact, the guy who leads you to Bill Williamson's fort is literally getting like a lap dance by one of them.
He is, and I think he tries to, convince John to hook
You're
up with one of
right.
these
He
girls,
does. He
and John
does. That's
says,
what I
"I'm
was
a married
remembering.
man," and then the guy's like, "Aren't we all?" Like,
Aren't we all?
John is like, he's one of a kind. He's actually loyal to his wife.
I find it so interesting that a lot of people always look back like, oh, people were so much more dignified back, back then.
No,
I'm like, no, they weren't. People are
absolutely
just as crazy as they've always been.
Yeah, they just hit it better, and even if
Exactly.
that
I mean, in the Wild West, they didn't give two flying fucks. So, I
No,
mean,
no,
clearly.
absolutely not, no.
But so you end up, like, you meet a bunch of people, and I don't want to go into all the details of all the different missions, but Nigel West Dickens is a con artist. Creech is a con artist, or sorry, Sweeney. What's his character's name? And it's Don Creech is the actor's name. He's Mr. Sweeney. He's Mr. Sweeney, and that's declassified. Uh, uh, Sweeney is a con artist. Um, Seth is a treasure hunter. Seth is terrifying because he's pretty much a grave robber, and he looks
He
like he's
is.
just like skin and bones, and it looks like he's
Treasure
about to
hunters
die.
calling him a treasure hunter is being nice.
It's very
That's
generous description.
it is, it
He's a
really is.
grave robber.
Like, his hands are dyed black from the work that he does.
Yeah.
I
He,
think he is a fascinating character.
what interests you about him? Like,
I
what's so
think
fascinating about him?
he is revolting in every sense of the word.
You're not
and
wrong.
and yet I think he is also kind of like a lost puppy. Like, he has severe mental issues that
Definitely.
you can tell, like, he has had some traumas, in his past, and that's led him to be this kind of a person who doesn't like to hang out with other humans. He likes to hang out with corpses. And I remember one of his lines when he was talking to John about why he exhumes corpses and robs them is that when people die, their loved ones bury them and forget about them. And he hangs out with them and talks to them. I just think maybe it's the psych major in me that finds him fascinating, but he is something like
Know
I
what
just
would
love
be
watching
fun?
him. Huh.
I, if you would be interested in doing this, and don't feel obligated, I can edit this part out too if it puts you on the spot. For the blog on my site, you could do a series of posts of psychoanalyzing the side characters of the Red Dead series.
Oh my god, that would be fun. That would be fun.
Do one on Nigel West Dickens. Do one on Seth Briers. Uh, do one on what is it? The state's tyrannical ruler, as according to Wikipedia. I guess it's Colonel Augustin Allende.
Yeah,
Um,
Colonel Allende is how they pronounce it.
Allende.
Yeah.
Okay, you could do one on all that stuff. That would be really funny, actually. Well, not funny, but interesting. Seth would be funny.
Yeah.
Not all the other characters might be funny.
No, not all of them, but some like I think Seth would be loads of fun.
That would be really. At least do him. At least psychoanalyze Seth. That would be really fun. Like watch all his cutscenes on repeat for about a month, and then talk to corpses
Uh,
like he does. You know the normal
yep.
stuff.
Yep, gotta get my
That's what
DSM out.
psychiatrists do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh. So once you do end up taking out Bill, which I honestly don't remember exactly how John does it. All I remember is that you end up storming Fort Mercer where Bill is held up. Oh, and then he flees to Mexico. That's so you
He
don't even kill
does.
him. He flees to
No.
Mexico to get Javier to seek help from Javier Escuela, and then you have
Mhm.
to go to Mexico. And that's
Yes.
where John parts ways with his allies up here, which honestly was super grateful for because like that first half of it, like it feels like that bit of the game is like almost half of it. Like
Yes.
it's so long up
It
until
was so long.
it
Oh my
really
god.
is.
It's almost frustrating. But this is like a common theme throughout the entire game of this quid pro quo with John. Everyone he meets, he is just trying to get his family back. He just wants help finding Bill Williamson and eventually Javier Escuela and Dutch Vanderlyn. And everyone he meets and asks for help, they're just like, okay, but first do these million things for me.
And then I
And
promise I'll help you.
I promise. Yes, exactly.
Especially Nigel West Dickens. You do so much for
Oh
him.
my god, it
I
was
feel
annoying.
like I
The
don't like
horse
it.
races and
I really don't like any of those characters. Like they got on my nerves towards the end. It's not that the characters
yeah.
themselves were bad. Like they were
Mhm.
interesting, but I just got so tired of doing shit for them.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like it kinda sort of got close to that point in Mexico as well.
Yeah, it didn't quite hit that for me, but I agree with you. Like I think
Yeah.
Mexico, it was just the right amount from what I
Yeah.
remember.
I think the storyline in Mexico is more entertaining than the storyline up in New Austin before you go to Mexico, so it's easier to deal with of this whole, "Oh, soon. We'll have information for you soon. We'll help you soon. Just do
Yeah.
this whole list of things for me." But yeah, New Austin, it was getting a little frustrating.
So then you go to Mexico, to Nuevo. You arrive in Nuevo Paraiso. Paraiso. The way it's written is
Teresa?
very
Uh,
strange. It
yeah.
looks like Paraiso. And you basically get involved in a local civil war between uh,
Yeah.
Colonel Augustin Allende.
Mhm.
Oh my god, I'm so
Allende.
sorry to anyone who speaks Spanish. I sincerely apologize. Who is the state's tyrannical ruler, and then Abraham Reyes, who is the leader of the rebellion against that government.
Mhm.
And basically, you work with both sides to track down your targets. And so you work with both sides, but then the tyrannical government's like turns on you, go figure. And John is rescued then by the rebels, and basically he vows to help them, and then pretty much shoots them all.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. I think I think you first come into contact with the state, like with Colonel Allende and his assistant. I forget his first name, but DeSanta, who's he's a womanizer, and he's the first time you meet him outside the gates of the colonel's estate, you he tries to intimidate John, and
Hmm.
then eventually just starts laughing, like, oh, okay, I guess he might be cool. And then you quickly find out that there's something wrong with these people.
There's a lot wrong with these people. Like there,
Yes.
I think what I like about the characters of this game is that they all none of them are good, but none of them are bad. I mean, some of them are awful people, obviously, but like they all have like some type of redeeming characteristic. I would say, with the exception of the tyrannical government guy.
Yeah, Allende is an awful, awful human being.
A
The,
hundred
the
percent. Like, cause
I
like
think
even like Dutch, you can see like why he's a good person underneath it, even
right.
though he's not a good person at the same time. Same
Hmm.
with John. Same with like Nigel West Dickens is a con artist, but at the same time, like he's got a, he's charismatic, so you don't feel quite as
Hmm.
angry at him.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
It's interesting
It's
because you go from like so many different people that you're helping with in the first section. Now it's pretty much just two in the second.
pretty much, yeah. It's just a revolution in Mexico, and you're just helping both sides because John does not care about politics, and he just wants information, and they're both dragging him along the entire time he's in Mexico.
There was another quote involving, I think maybe it's right in, I think it has to do with that. I thought it was really interesting. I'm many things, most of them bad, but a man of political principles, no. And I
Yep,
think
that
he says it
I
to
remember that.
Landon Ricketts, which if I remember correctly, he's kind of like the gunslinger who's hiding out down in
Yes.
Mexico.
Yep, that's him. Yep.
That's what I thought. Um, Yeah, I forget. I barely even remember him in this game. But yeah, you first meet him when you go to Mexico and he witnesses John killing three bandits who try to rob him. And
Mhm.
basically he kind of teaches him the dead eye. I forgot
Yes.
about that. That's where you learn the dead eye from this guy, which I think is really cool because up until that point you don't have dead eye, so you don't have that ability to slow down time and shoot things
Mhm.
more accurately. And I think it's cool that they found a story and gameplay reason as to why you don't know it yet. Like you learn it from a
That's true.
gunslinger, so it just builds that immersion into the world a little bit more because it's not just like you got it from a skill tree; you learned it from a
Mhm.
gunslinger.
That's true. That is pretty cool that they did that.
So what are your thoughts on this? Like, what do you remember from this section? Because I have a lot more memories of that first section of Nigel
Mhm.
West Dickens and Seth and the arms dealer, which I'm Irish, so I couldn't think of his name for a
Yeah.
second, and all those people. But I barely remember this section. What are your thoughts on it?
That Reyes and Allende, who are the leaders of the two, opposing forces in this revolution, are so similar. They hate each other, and they represent such different politics. Like Reyes supports basically like a democratic socialism sort of thing, or just socialism, and then Allende is like dictatorship.
Hmm.
Um, but they are so similar. Like Allende, they're both ladies' men. They both love women. Allende is a terrible human being who does not bother with flirting. He just rapes women. He has his men take women from villages, whether they are on the side of the revolution or his own side, and they bring him to his estate, and he just rapes them, and they're stuck there or they get shot. And on the other side of that is Reyes, who flirts with anything that moves, and will like he's supposedly engaged to this woman, the school teacher named Louisa, um, who ends up dying for his cause, but he can never remember her name. And he does not remember that they're engaged. He keeps calling her Lara. Like she's the reason he got captured. You first meet him because Louisa comes to you and says that her fiance Reyes has been captured. They're going to kill him, and she asks John for help. So he goes to help, rescues him, and he's like, "Louisa sent me," and he said, "Who?" It's like your fiance. Like, oh yeah, yeah, of course. It just calls her Lara for the entire horse ride to the raft where she is standing. And he just goes with
Wow.
it. He just goes with it, like just starts singing romantic songs to her in Spanish. And he has no idea who this woman is. But she like apparently they are in a relationship.
She's just in love with him. She can't help it, you know? It's just
Yeah. Yep.
that's
And it's, it's sad that she died fighting for him. And he had, even after she died, John, I remember, came up to Reyes and was like, Louisa died for you. And he's like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Poor Lara. Like, it's like, oh my God.
I
They're
don't
just,
remember and I'm remembering bits and pieces of this, but wow, it is
yeah, he's terrible. They're both terrible, but Reyes is the lesser of two evils.
yeah, it's like he's just
Absolutely.
emotionally abusive. That guy is like everything abusive.
Yes, yes, definitely. And Reyes is trying to be a leader, but he doesn't I don't think he doesn't even know how to be a leader. He's a poet. That's what he is.
I feel like that like I feel like a lot of times when you see characters like him, they get in over their heads, but they don't realize
Mhm.
they're in over their heads. They don't realize the amount of work that it's going to be to like once vanquish your enemy and your revolution has succeeded, it's not over. Just
No.
because you succeeded doesn't mean it's over. Like you have a lot more to do. And he
Yeah,
very
and
much kind of, especially if he can't remember his fucking fiance's name, how is he going to run a country?
he's not. I remember I watched a playthrough just to get familiarized with the story again, and they like towards the end of this whole storyline, John and him are riding a wagon together, and he asks Reyes like, "What are you going to do? Like, say you win this revolution, what are you going to do?" And he's like, "I'm going to delegate." So he doesn't even know what he's doing. He just wants the glory.
Yeah, yeah, that's uh, we might have unfortunately all too similar real life parallels, from a couple years ago
Oop.
with that. But we're gonna stay away from that. We don't have to
Yeah.
talk about that anymore. But anyway, so okay, wow, like, and I think one thing that really sticks out to me about this game is like these characters are actually really well fleshed out, even though
Mhm,
when I played it, it didn't feel that way to me. And I don't know if it's because I feel like a lot of the voice acting performances, and I think because they were done in engine, I don't know, just something about the performances. I don't know if it's the performances themselves or if it's just the way they were presented in the game. It just doesn't hit me like
mhm.
Red Dead 2, and this is all I'm going to say, I know, because we got to save it for our Red Dead 2 episode. But like Red Dead 2, every emotional moment in that game hit me in some way, shape, or form.
Mhm.
In this one, I mean, even the big ending where John ends up getting killed, I was just kind of like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
It
it's very sad, but it didn't, it didn't I wasn't crying.
exactly, and I think that's I know we're kind of jumping towards the end here, but we're
Mhm.
about 50-ish minutes in, so I want to start moving on to some other stuff. Um, so we can talk about the ending of the game, but you know, you end up taking out Dutch Vanderlyn, and Dutch even tells you, like they're not going to let you walk away.
Mhm.
They're like, just when you finish this isn't over for you. Like you think you're going to go free, but you're not. And he was right, and it's not surprising because
Yeah.
John's past finally caught up to him. And with that
Mhm.
said, the agents, even though they're supposed to be on the side of good, they're not good people either.
No, they're not.
I mean, they kidnapped an innocent, because even Abigail and what's their son's name? I'm blanking on it right now.
Jack.
Jack. Even Abigail and Jack, John's wife and kid, they, even when they were in the gang, as you saw in Red Dead 2, they didn't do anything. They were just there because they
Mhm.
were with
Yeah.
John. So they were innocent.
Although I think Abigail hinted at, stealing, like,
Okay,
helping
yeah,
the gang with
Abigail did do
stealing,
stuff like that. I
but
forgot.
Jack is completely innocent. He was born into this, he had no control over anything. They tried to hide everything from him, but you can't hide everything with the
No,
life
you
they live.
can't. So, he captures Dutch, and Dutch concedes defeat and warns John that the Bureau will go after him. I'm paraphrasing off of Wikipedia for this, but he ends up committing suicide,
Right.
and Dutch commits suicide. And after all this happens, the Agent Ross honors their agreement, and John's reunited. And that's when you go back to Beecher's Hope. And this section of the game is really weird. And in retrospect, I think it was a good idea, even if it overstayed its welcome. Where you have this insane thing happen, you finally finish tracking down your former gang leader, and then you're just out roping horses. Like
Yep.
you have to. It's not like you're doing this because you want to. You have to. You have to rope
Mhm.
some horses. You have to herd some cattle. You have to or herd horses. You have to do like ranch work essentially.
Yeah, they were away from their ranch, all of them, for a long time, so they need to do ranch work to make money to live.
Then the agents come back for them, and
Mm,
you meet Uncle again, which Uncle is a character that you only meet in the latter half of the game after you've already taken out Dutch. He was always kind of like the guy in the gang who was just kind of there.
yep, there, didn't do anything, always complaining.
Yeah. He was just there for a free meal pretty much,
Yeah,
and
pretty much,
he
and a
didn't care
drink.
what company he kept. He's like, "I get free food out of them." But,
Yep, and he's a bit of an alcoholic, like, he has, like, vomit stains on his beard. He's always drinking.
he's a little gross, to say the least.
He's Yeah, to say the least, yeah.
So, you end up going, you do all that stuff, and Uncle helps you, and, it's pretty tragic because I think it's in the middle of the night, they come for you, and Uncle helps you fend them off until you can get over to the barn. John puts Jack and Abigail on a horse, and then you pretty much have to open the barn door, and you can. This part I think was a really cool touch. I think it was really, really, really smart in terms of game design. You end it with going into Deadeye and taking out as many people as you possibly can,
Right, and
and
it's never
it
enough.
yeah, it's never enough. You literally go out guns blazing.
Yeah, that was probably the perfect way for John to go out.
It really was, and it's very poetic, and it just sucks
Mhm,
because, like we were saying before, like I didn't feel anything for that. Like I can look at the story beat like from a macro perspective, right, and be like,
mhm.
wow, that's nuts. Like like you feel sad about it when you're describing it, but in the moment it doesn't hit you because I don't know if it's just it. Like when I first did it, I thought I did something wrong. I restarted it and I redid the whole section because I was like, did I do something wrong? Like because the first thing I did, I put all of my clip into one of the agents.
Mhm.
I was like, if I'm going down, I'm going to take you over. And then the agent didn't die because you're not supposed to be able to kill the agent. I'm like, well, that's stupid. Don't have him there if you can't kill him.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, so you take him out, and the game ends, quote unquote. But if you wait to the end of the post credit sequence, you actually play as Jack, and you can go hunt down the agent who killed your dad. And this actually happens like 3 years later, because Abigail dies, and then Jack hunts down the recently retired Agent Ross and exacts his revenge.
Yep, it was a pretty quick epilogue. Um,
Well,
Actually, I think the credits roll after you kill Agent Ross.
does it? I thought it had
Yeah.
they rolled first and then you killed Agent Ross. I did find it interesting though. You actually have to track him down though. It's like you have to
Yeah.
do research and find out where he is.
Yeah,
I
it
didn't feel
doesn't
like doing
tell
all
you.
that, so I just Googled it.
I remember I started the epilogue first time I played, and I got on my horse and I'm riding around as Jack, and I'm like, okay, well, there's no mission. There aren't any missions on the map. Where do I go? There has to be some point to this. And then I happened to be in Blackwater and I saw a little question mark pop up, and I was like, okay, maybe that's it. And it was. Like, they really do not hand it to you.
You have to go find it. You have to go into the town. And I'm sure it's just like hanging out in the town. Like as soon as you enter Blackwater, it's there. Like they figure you're eventually going to go to
Yeah.
Blackwater, you know?
Yeah.
And the overall story is just fantastic. Like I don't think
It's-
they did a fantastic job with it. The characters are all really like I was more compelled by the characters of how am I supposed to say it?
Allende, you said it right.
Allende, okay. Of Allende and Reyes when you described it than how I felt when I played it.
Hmm.
I was more interested in them in your description than me playing it. But they they all the characters feel fully fleshed out. Like I John
Hmm.
is a little bit of a wet blanket in my opinion of a character. Like
Little bit.
he's a
Little
little
bit.
boring. Um,
Yeah.
but it at the same time, like looking back and just seeing some of the quotes and watching some of the cutscenes with it, it's like I really feel like what limited it the most was the technology for facial animations and body
Yeah,
language.
I agree.
I
I
think
think they tried to go subtle, but they didn't
mhm,
have the technology to pull it off fully.
yes, 100%. I think Red Dead 2, they did have the
Mhm.
technology to pull
Yes.
off the subtlety that it required of it. And I'm glad, but at the same time, I'm glad they didn't go over the top and broad and like made it
Mhm.
cartoonish because that's the only way you could
Yeah.
have with the graphics they had, or they would
Mhm.
have had to go more cartoony with the graphics they had. And I'm glad they didn't because I feel like that also would have ruined it, you know?
Yeah, it would have cheapened it. I mean, these games are like movies. You're, like, playing a movie. It pulls the emotion, well, I mean, maybe less so for the first Red Dead, but it pulls emotions out of you that
Hmm.
you would have while watching a sad movie or, an action movie or, stuff like that. It's beautifully made, both of them.
I feel like the first one, the emotions are all there, and I feel
Mhm,
like if we would have played it in its original day and not have the benefit of like 8-9 years of other game experiences like Horizon
mhm.
Zero Dawn
Yes.
and uh like Last of Us and BioShock and all these
Mhm,
other BioShock Infinite and all these other games that like maybe not BioShock Infinite but like games that really expanded, really moved the video game medium forward in terms of storytelling,
mhm.
in terms of story, like performance in storytelling, like how a story, it's not just the act of writing a good story, but it's also the act of telling that story. And I think there's a lot of games in between the first one and the second one that really advanced video games as a medium into doing that better. And this is actually one of them, but because this was a stepping stone and we had a bunch of other
Yeah,
stepping stones since, I feel like that's why some of these things just didn't quite hit as hard as they probably did to players at the time. Like I bet you players had no idea what the fuck was going on when John died. Like they were
yeah.
probably so in so much shock
Mhm.
by that. And when it happened, I was like, "Oh, okay." That's
I
very
will
little emotion
say
to it.
I
And
will say, though, that there is a pretty good bit of sound mixing in that death scene. After he is shot, he has this rattling breath, like there's blood in his lungs, and
mhm.
he is just slowly falling on his knees and everybody's just staring at him and you just hear nothing but the rattling breath. And I think that is what got my emotions up the most. It didn't make me cry, but it's like that alone, like no voices, nothing like that. It was just the rattling.
And you didn't need to have like there was no subtlety in that because there didn't need to be for that story
No.
moment. Like it's what you could do. The subtlety in that was through the audio, not through the visuals,
Mhm.
and that's why it
Yes.
worked. I feel
Yes,
like,
definitely.
yeah, man, I just want to talk about Red Dead 2 now because it's
I
comparing the
know.
two. We'll we'll
I know
we'll
it's hard.
we'll compare the two when we record our next episode. We'll definitely
Yeah.
do that. Um, and by the way, we're an hour in. Listeners, if I sound a little less enthusiastic than normal, it's because I'm a little under the weather. But I'm. You ever have those weird colds where it's like you feel like energetic and physically fine, but your voice sounds like it just got run over by a truck?
Yep, I've got that before.
That's what it is right now. Like I feel fine. Like not no fever, no runny nose, just my voice just sounds like it got hit by a truck. It's very strange.
Oh, it's just not. It's not that bad.
It feels that way when I'm speaking, but it's strange. I'm glad we were able to record when we did though, because I a little behind the scenes stuff. I'm recording 3 episodes in the next 4 days, so including this one. So I'm happy for tomorrow to have a day off to rest my voice. But anyway, so with Red Dead One, that's pretty much how the game ends. Overall, the gameplay of it, we've talked a lot about the story, but the gameplay is pretty. Honestly, it's pretty straightforward. I do think it suffers from age, and I think Red Dead
Mhm,
Two also suffers from this, where they didn't update the controls to something that makes a whole lot of sense. Like the fact that you have to tap X to sprint, or you press and hold X to run. I always thought that was a weird. On Xbox, it would be A. I
mhm.
I always thought that was weird. But
That's definitely a Rockstar thing. It's not the
yeah, I
only
don't like
game they
that.
do.
I don't like that. I think it's dated. But with
I
that
think I'm
said,
just used to it.
you what? Sorry.
I think I'm just used to it. I play a lot of Rockstar games, so
I'm used to it too, but I still think it's dated and should go away.
mm,
Like I'm used
yeah,
to it now that I played Red Dead 1 and 2, but it's still
mhm.
dated and it shouldn't still be in games. I'm just saying, like you shouldn't have to like that's taking a button away that you could have used just as like one of the like R3 or L3, like clicking in the joysticks.
True.
You
That's
could
true.
use that button you could use that button for something else, but it's very strange. But what I was going to say was the gunplay in this, I even at the time I thought felt really good. Like I still think the
Mhm.
gunplay feels really solid in this game.
It
Um,
does, yeah.
all these years later, I think it just works really well. And then obviously, then you add your Deadeye ability to it, and that just makes it work even better. And it's a smart way of doing things. Like I think it works really well. Even the controlling the horses still feels pretty good, though the animation is a little like clunkier because it's older.
Mhm.
Though I do have a fun fact about the horse animations. The horse animations, they wanted to make it realistic, so they used a stunt horse and they mocapped a stunt horse.
Aw.
And then when the crew members were like from the mocap studio were trying to signal each other, I guess for like to communicate something about how they're recording, it just so happened that the signal they were using is a signal the horse is trained in, and it causes the horse to rear back, and it would knock all the sensors off and and the rider off the horse because the rider wasn't expecting it.
That's funny.
So it took them a lot of time to do that, which is it's kind of funny, but yeah.
It
Yeah, I
also
just
sounds really frustrating for the developers.
yeah, to say the least, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Um and the I mean the horseback riding still controls really well. Like overall the controls itself works. I do think the missions aren't quite that varied. I don't know, what do you think? The side missions.
The side missions, yeah, not so much, although I do remember one where you come across a guy who has, like, one of the first airplanes. He's trying to
Huh.
design one of the first airplanes. It's in Mexico, and, um, John's looking at him like, "This is a stupid idea. I don't know why you're even trying this." And he he tries it, goes off the cliff. It fails because planes have not been invented yet, and he dies. I thought that was pretty unique.
That's pretty funny. That's pretty amazing, actually. Oh, and that's funny because at the beginning of the game on the train, because John's riding a train into Armadillo, um, I think he rides it into Armadillo, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
He's riding the train in Armadillo, and there is people. There's a young girl and a priest talking, and the young girl's talking about that, and the priest is like, "Oh, you silly girl! People can't fly. No one
Yeah,
can do that." Even though that's
I
probably
remember
when the
that.
Wright brothers were like starting all that stuff.
Yeah, I think so. The planes were mentioned several times throughout the game, just subtly,
Yeah.
an offhand comment. But yeah, there's every once in a while you'll find a hidden gem in the stranger missions, but overall, I think they're pretty much, you know, similar on the same wavelength.
Hmm.
Kind of
Hmm.
like help my friends in trouble, go save them, kind of thing.
Oh, so I'm
Um,
looking at a bigger version of the map now. The whole area we are in is New Austin. Like, it's not
mhm,
just like, okay, I was confused by that. So the whole area up until Blackwater is New Austin, and then
yes,
but the
Blackwater's
Blackwater
in
is in West Elizabeth.
yes, West Elizabeth.
Okay, West Elizabeth, born and raised. In
Oh
Blackwater is where I
God.
spend most of my days.
Oh my God.
Someone's got to do that. Someone's got to do a Fresh Prince style like West Red Dead cover. I want
Do
to see
they,
it.
Josh? Do
What?
they? Do
Yeah,
they
they
have
do.
to?
Yeah, it's it says so in the Bible. Moses came down from the mountain and was like, "Behold, Blackwater, Prince of Bel Air,"
Oh my
and then
God.
he busted out a sick rhyme. And I can't finish that. I'm tired. Okay, it's been a stressful week.
Yeah, I don't know where I thought you were gonna take that, but it wasn't there.
um, oh my god, that made me laugh. So uh couple final notes before we get into, I just want to talk a little bit about the music. I don't have much to say about the music. It was just a fun fact I have about it. So if you have anything that you want to add about the music, think on it real for a little, or get ready for that. I don't know, that was an awful transition. But with something I found interesting in the bottom portion of it, there's a place called Rio Bravo. That was an actual real location, like on the border of Texas. I don't know if it was on the border, but it was in Texas. And it was actually one of my favorite John Wayne movies, Rio Bravo.
Oh, really?
It stars John Wayne, Dean Martin, and Ricky Nelson. A very odd collection. I don't know. You know who Dean Martin is, right?
Yeah, I've heard all of those names.
Okay, so yeah, there's even like some musical numbers, and it's not like a musical. Like there's not like dancing, and what I mean by musical numbers is that they're in a jail, not in jail, but
Oh.
they're like all sheriffs and stuff. So they're in the jail, like hanging out, and then they start playing a song on the guitar, and it's
That's not
actually legitimately really good.
I wouldn't expect some I mean, I know you said it's not like a musical, but I wouldn't expect, like, a musical number in a Western.
I mean, you have Blazing Saddles that had a musical number.
I never
That's a
saw it.
comedy.
Okay. That
Have
makes
you
sense.
seen
Well, that
Blazing Saddles?
no, I haven't.
What?
Alright, I guess I'm putting that on my list.
You need to see Blazing. There's no it's not part of a series, so you don't have to watch something beforehand. It's a it's a western spoof movie.
Like, they have a spoof for every kind of movie.
Well, this was done by Mel Brooks.
Oh, okay. Alright.
Just to put that type of comedy in your mind. It's genius. It's a really good movie. I'll talk to you more about it off mic because it's one of my
Gotcha.
favorites. But Rio Bravo is a really good movie. It's basically about this sheriff who um, captures this dude who kills someone in a bar in a saloon in his town. This dude, he's a gangster, he's a bandit or whatever. But his brother is this really wealthy guy, and he's not a really good guy either. So his brother pretty much boxes up the whole town so no one can get in or out. unless the sheriff agrees to release his brother. And obviously he could do that, but then he's not really much of a good sheriff. The dude literally killed somebody. So the whole movie is pretty much about him having to fend off like what he's going to do to like it's not a high action movie, but it's pretty much just how he's dealing with this problem of someone trying to basically smoke him out. And that's pretty much the premise of the movie. Things get to a boiling point towards the end and stuff gets resolved.
See, I didn't realize Rio Bravo was an actual place. I just figured it represented the Rio Grande.
No, Rio Bravo is. You know what? Hold on. Let me double check. Let me make sure I'm not making shit up. But it's a movie, but I am 90% certain it's an actual place. Rio Bravo town. Let's see if that's even. There's a town called Rio Bravo, Texas. It's in Webb County, and
Hmm.
it literally, like, legit. I I don't know if it's like it's just it's like a strip. It's just like this little tiny
Hmm.
strip in the middle of Texas. I don't know if it's the actual original town or anything like that, but
Uh,
I'm on Google Maps on Street View, and um it doesn't look anything like the town from the movie. I'm just saying. I wonder why. But anyway, so yeah, so music. I wanted to wrap this up with some music talk. Um I mean, I didn't really notice too much about the soundtrack. I think Red Dead 2 has a significantly better soundtrack in my opinion. There's a lot more moments in Red Dead 2 that like the music stuck out to me in a good way. And in this one it just felt more like background noise, not in a bad way. It just it, it helped with the immersion of it. But the one
mhm,
thing I wanted to bring up about it was the way that they composed music for it. And I guess I should actually list who the composer or mention who the composers are: Bill Elm and Woody Jackson. The way they composed it was that they did it in more like, instead of writing full songs, they almost wrote like little snippets. I don't know how, I forget
mhm,
how it was described in the video I saw, but basically they would write little like phrases of music. And so that way, and they wrote all those phrases in the same key of A minor and in the same beats per minute of 130 beats per minute. So that way, like they would always be in tune with each other and they would always be at the same rhythm and cadence as each other. So what that gave them freedom to do is they could record and layer a bunch of these songs, and that way the game engine could literally craft music on the fly. So if you heard a song playing and then you got on your horse, a bass line might go to kind of give you that
mhm.
kind of moving feeling.
Yeah, I noticed the bass, and the reason I noticed it is because it is almost exactly the same as the music in Bully, the video game Bully.
Really?
Almost exactly the same. That bass line, just that's the music. That's the background music in Bully, and a lot of the overall game reminded me a lot of Bully, like the gameplay as well, and just like the graphics and the way the characters move, their body movements. It was very similar, and they came out around, similar time periods as well, so that's probably why. But I think it was probably the same composer who did the music for both games.
I wonder actually then. Let me look up Bully real quick. When did Bully come out though? I feel like it wouldn't have been.
Um, it was before Red Dead. I know that.
The composer was Sean Lee, so it's not the same composer.
Okay.
And it came out 4 years earlier in 2006. So it's possible that it's possible that they share some similarities, but yeah,
I
I don't
wonder
know.
if maybe it's like a Rockstar thing. I mean, they're both Rockstar games. That's why my brain connected the two, is possibly being, the same composer, or, something. There's so many similarities between the two games, um, other than the
Really?
fact that it's a Western.
I still have
But
yet to play Bully. I'm pretty sure you gave me a copy of it too.
did I?
If
Oh,
not
yes,
you,
I did.
someone did.
I did. That was me.
I gotta find it. I know I have it here somewhere.
It was one of
It's
my favorite games in high school.
I will have to I'll have to give it a shot. Sorry, just the hearing bully and then be like, "That was one of my favorite games in high school." Just I know you weren't a bully, but it just
No.
the idea of it was kinda just, funny to mix together. Um,
Yeah.
so let's start wrapping this up. What are your final thoughts on the original Red Dead Redemption?
I think the story was very good. I had a lot of fun. My favorite area was Mexico. And I wish they had that in Red Dead too. And little bit to be desired on the graphics and maybe a little on the gameplay, like the movements, a little bit clunky, but overall, definitely a game I would play again.
I am with you because I was even playing it just yesterday just to kind of get, like I said, get reacquainted with it, kind of feel how the controls are because it's been, 3 years since almost 3 years since I played it last. And it just still feels good. I will agree with you on the graphics. I think the graphics are actually really good for the time, but
Yes.
comparing them to modern graphics, it's I think where it shows its age isn't even in like the facial models. Like I actually think
Mm-mm.
the
Yeah.
character models look really solid for the age. It's maybe it's just the TV or maybe it's because I'm playing on a PS3, but it's the anti-aliasing. Like all the edges of the trees and the houses just feel
Yeah.
very rough. Like it feels like these sharp, jagged lines just cutting through. And with that said, like the amount of detail in the landscape is really good. The skybox looks really nice.
Hmm.
All the characters look really interesting. And we didn't even really talk about Bonnie McFarland all that much in our
Yeah.
episode. um, I mainly just because I don't remember a lot of the missions other than you help her out a few times.
Yeah. And
C
then they have like a run in with her and Abigail towards the end.
That's
And
what it is.
a lot of tension there.
Because Bonnie clearly likes John,
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
and John is a good man and loyal to his wife.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um,
And Abigail's very jealous
because he
from
got
the
to spend all this time with her.
Yep, and he got a letter and she, like, made him read it out loud and all that, like, she's extremely jealous, asking him what she looks like. And then they meet and yeah, that final shot of Bonnie, the last you see of her in the game is just I think it was very cinematic. It's just like a wide shot of her in the middle of a dirt road and she's alone. Like she's no one around her, just her. She looks very small and it's after John leaves for the last time and I think that was very um very creatively done.
I like that. I like that tension between the three of them. Like it's a love triangle
Mhm.
that they don't bother doing the love triangle with. Like they're
Yes.
not doing a will they won't leave. John's already made the
Mhm.
decision. Like he's
Yep.
with Abigail, but it still makes it really interesting because it's kind of like that thing. It's like where you meet someone and like maybe not you, but like you meet someone and they get a crush on you, and you're like, I'm sorry, I'm
Yeah.
type of thing. That's never happened to me. That sounds really conceited when I said that, but just but like I've heard, stories of friends with stuff like that. So it's like
Mhm.
um that feels more real where it's not into this big will they won't they like love triangle. No, no,
Yeah.
no. Person already made their decision. Just because you suddenly
Mhm.
like me doesn't mean that I'm going to go back on the decision I made with my wife type of thing. So
Yeah,
I
I think that
like that.
was refreshing.
One final note I have is the actor who plays uh Jack in he's the voice of Jack at the end of the game was a guy named Josh Blaylock, which first off, he sounds awesome because his name's Josh. I'm just saying. But two, he was in a web series called Video Game High School from 2012 to 2014. And that was one of my favorite web series when it came out. It was done by a YouTuber named Freddie Wong. He started a company called Rocket Jump, which I think still is up and running. But it was this really like special effects heavy thing, and the idea was that it's a high school for kids to basically an esports high school before esports was a thing. And what's nuts is there's actually starting to become like esports schools in like different countries now. So they kind of predicted that.
I think I just now realized you had me watch that a couple years ago.
Did I?
I think you did.
Did you like it?
I think I did. I don't remember.
If for those who have not seen it, it's definitely worth checking out. It's insane, it's over the top, but it's still really fun. So I definitely suggest like trying it out. I haven't watched it in years, but it was super high quality considering it was uh basically an indie film but done as a TV show. Like they did a full 3-season TV show, and it's really excellently done. I'm gonna see if I can find it again because it's really good. But anyway, so he was the main character in Video Game High School, actually, which I think is kind of cool. So that is all the time we have for Still Loading today. On Still Loading today, we talked all about Red Dead Redemption, the first game, and I think we covered a lot of it. I feel like I kind of
Mhm.
rambled a bit on the story, but I think Justine, you picked up my slack excellently. So thank you for joining me today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Do you have anything you want, any social media or anything you want to promote to let the people know where to find you, or are you an enigma?
I'm an enigma. I'm a hermit and an enigma.
All right. So she's an enigma and a hermit, so you can't find her. But for me, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at StillLoadingPod on all of them. If you want to email me, you can email me at stillloadingcontact@gmail.com. If you want to support the show, please consider going to Patreon for $1 a month. You'll get the episodes a couple days early and at a higher bit rate. For $5 a month, you will get all of that. Oh, I'm sorry. You get also access to a Discord, an exclusive Discord for the $1 a month. For $5 a month, you get all of that, the Discord and the early access, as well as two bonus mini episodes a month that are exclusive to the $5 patrons. So if you want to go check that out, still loading or patreon.com/stillloadingpod. You can also give it a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. That helps more people find it. And the most important shout out is the Bit by Bit Foundation. The Bit by Bit Foundation is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to put video games and video game consoles in the hands of children receiving inpatient care at hospitals. So if you want to support them, go to bitbybitfoundation.org and consider donating. And that will do it for this episode of Still Loading. Justine, once again, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
And I will see you all next time.
The wild unknown. Place can eat a man alive. In time, we charted the wild unknown, but we kept the name. Place is so raw, even the calamity couldn't cook it. Not all of it. Gotta keep a sure foot out there. So many folks lost forever in the wilds. Savage things lurking at every turn. The calamity must have scrambled their eggs. Kid takes a last look around, 'cause he ain't coming back. They shouldn't have let their guard down. He digs his way out of the clearing, but the wild won't let him go without a fight. shot.